Hey guys, I hope you have all had a good week so far. I'm I'm sorry that this is going to be the way that we're meeting from now on, but I hope that by doing this we can at least try to get some stuff sorted out and we can at least get some things taken care of and move on more smoothly with the semester. So first off, if you haven't already done the forum post for your checkpoint, I would highly recommend that you do so before midnight tonight, because that will close tonight and it will not be reopened unless special circumstances are met. But for now, let's go ahead and jump into the app assignment. Your next big assignment is going to be developing an app from scratch. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and go to figma.com if you haven't done so already. Some of you may have already checked this out. If not, that is totally okay. We'll go ahead and go through it anyway. Now, what you're going to do is when you get to figma.com, what you're going to do, you can either go to drafts, or if it's like mine, it should pop up on the top right hand corner with a plus sign. What you're going to do is if you have drafts, you'll have all of these in the screen with wireframes, basics, everything, and any projects that you would have worked on. For now, though, what you're going to do is if you want to create a new project, you're going to go to the plus sign up here on the top right corner, click that. That's going to say new file, and that will take you to a new screen where you can edit your prototype or you can create new stuff altogether. Also, by the way, if you hear the sound of a keychain or if you hear the sound of meowing, that's a foster cat, so apologies in advance. Anyway, let's go ahead and move on with this. So we're going to go to the untitled screen where it says drafts up here. What you're going to do, first of all, is let me go ahead and walk you through a few things. First of all, we're going to go ahead and choose this thing right here. The tool panel, which is what you see here, this will allow you to select stuff, and this will allow you to scale stuff more thoroughly. Over here, you have the frame option. And then you can select which frame you want by clicking on this. And on the right panel over here, it gives you ideas for designs that you can use in order to create a prototype draft. So what we're going to do for the sake of the demonstration, I'm going to go ahead and select iPhone 8 Plus, and by clicking on that, it gives me a new iPhone screen. And over here you'll see different types of tools for this. Under design, it gives you options to edit the screen as a whole. You can, for example, round the edges. I'm going to give it a corner radius of 50, and it rounds those edges out. Or you can select prototype or code, and yes, you can add code, your own code or CSS in here. So that's a really cool thing that you can do if you really want to do that. For now though, let's go back to design. I'm going to make this 25 just to make them not as rounded. You can change the X here. Let's do 300, and it shifts it to the right. Let's undo that. You can select whether or not you want it to be horizontal or vertical. If you want to explore this, you'll see that there are auto layouts and layout grids that you can do. You can do a grid layout, or you can do other layouts too. If you have other libraries that you can use for layouts, like crosshatch layouts, you can do that as well. If you want to select the fill for this, let's go ahead and close this. If you want to select like a certain fill, you'll see that there's the hexadecimal code right here. You can also click on the square over here and change the color. So if I drag this, that changes the background color of the screen. Again, you can select either that or you can enter your own hex code. A thing about entering the hex code though is it's not always going to enter the exact color for the hex code that you entered. If you select like a certain hex code, like I'm going to select 4B, 4B, 4B. If I'm going to select that and watch this. Well, actually it did do that, so never mind. So let me just 4KFOIN. Let's delete this. So yeah, that last hex code I entered didn't exist, so some hex codes will work, others won't. So when all else fails, you can either select this or you can select your hex code. Just a reminder that the hex code won't always show up. You can select the opacity of this too. So I'm going to do a 50% opacity, and that makes it more transparent. So this would be like, think of this as like kind of a blanket on the screen. This would have a 50% transparency. If you want to enter a stroke, okay, I like one of the warmer colors, so I'm just going to change it to a warmer color here. If you want to give it a stroke is just kind of like a border, so to speak. So I'm going to give this a stroke of, let's do a dark red. And then you can select the stroke size, and you can already see over here, if I unclick this, you can already see kind of the stroke on the outside here. If I want to make that thicker though, again, you have this thing right here where you can do a stroke size of, let's do 2 and see what that does. And that made it a little thicker. Now you can either put it in the center, and that makes it a little thinner, that kind of teeters on the edge between inside and outside, or you can put it on the outside, whatever you deem fit. If you go to effects, you have a drop shadow here. Now this won't be as noticeable on this particular thing, but it will be noticeable if like you have a certain object like a photo or a shape and you want to put a drop shadow on there. It would give a shadow imprint on the screen that you see there. Alright, so let's go ahead, and speaking of objects, let's go ahead and enter one. So I'm going to go ahead and select over here where this square is. That's going to be the shape toolbar, and you'll see that there are different things you can do. You have rectangles, you can draw lines, arrows, ellipses, so on and so forth. You can even upload an image. So first of all, what we're going to do is I'm going to select the rectangle option, and I'm going to hold down, and I'm going to drag out a rectangle. And again, same thing here. You can change the dimensions of the rectangle. So let's say I wanted to make this a square, for instance. Or that actually, I'm sorry, that's actually the X and Y axis. That doesn't change the size of the rectangle. That actually only shifts it along the X or Y axis. So what we're going to do, if you actually want to change it, let's go ahead and try this. If you want to like change it into a square, then you have the width and height options. If you want to give it rounded edges, for instance, or actually no, this little thing right here, that will constrain the proportions. If you don't want to move this, so like I'm going to go ahead and deconstrain the proportions. If by deconstraining it, I can shift the shape into whatever I see fit. But if I constrain those proportions of that certain shape, if I click this and then I move it, it's still going to retain a certain shape, or at least it should. It didn't in this case. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to the rectangle. And again, you can also have rounded edges, or you can give it a rotation of, say, 20 degrees, and then it rotates that. You can enter the constraints here as well. Then you can also have your own, you can also fill it and do whatever you deem fit. And again, you have the stroke and effects here as well. Now, if you want to do something like a text tool, you're going to go to the text tool up here. And let's go ahead and click the rectangle and type in something. I'm going to call this Myri's mobile app. Click out here. Now, if you want to change the box size or the text size, there are two different things you have to keep in mind. By dragging out here, you're just going to change the box size. Nothing changes to the font if you drag that box out. So if you, in order to change the font, and let me do this real quick. In order to change the font size, I'm going to double click on the text, and that'll highlight that. Go down here. You'll have a font size of 12 for instance, and that's going to be the auto-generated font size for a lot of these. Go ahead and change that to, let's do 24. Actually, let's do 20. That's better. You can change the font style. I'm going to try Rosario. That actually looks cool. Not, well, it actually isn't, but it changed the font, so. Anyway, you can decide whether you want it, you can decide whether you want it to align left, center, right, or if you want to do special customizations with it. Very similar to how you would navigate text in Microsoft Word. So, and again, you can also change the fill or the text color. Let's see if we can't give this another color altogether. Let's do a darker color. So it's kind of do a maroon, and that'll change the text color as well. All right, so that's pretty much it for like shapes and whatnot, except for the image. If you want to enter an image, what you're going to do is you're going to place the image here. So let's go ahead and I'm going to show you an example. So after I click this, and it should load up. Here we go. There we go. Do pictures. And I think I'm going to do a flower portrait. So I'm going to click open. Now if I just click this, now there are some things you need to keep in mind before you enter a photo onto the mobile app prototype. So one thing that you need to be aware of is, let's say for instance you just click on the app. If you just do a left click, it makes the photo bigger. Now you can in a way crop the photo if you want to by double clicking and then cropping over here. But honestly, that's going to take a lot more time than is necessary. If you want to do that, I'm not going to stop you. But what I would recommend if you want a photo in there, is go back to place image, let it load and let it pop up. Any day now. Let's see if it'll pop up. Or there we go. Always pops up whenever I go back for it. Anyway, let's go ahead and select the flower again. What I would do is, you see the flower icon at the bottom right corner of the picture placer or the mouse. So what you're going to do is, instead of just clicking and letting it place, you're going to click and hold and then drag it out. That's going to allow the picture to be more to actually fit in there. You can constrain it. You can constrain the proportions, and you can do whatever you deem fit with it. So that, and it makes it easier to manage in the app if you want to use that. And again, you can also, you can make this more transparent if you want to, so that it blends in with the background. All right, so we've covered region tools like frames and slices. We've also did shapes. Let's go ahead and touch briefly on pencil and pen. Now, pencil is just basically kind of like if you actually had a pencil. You can just scribble on it and then kind of do some stuff. If you have a touch screen, one of the cool things about having a pencil is you can have your own signature on here. So I'm going to go ahead, and I have a touch screen. It's not going to look the best, of course, but I'm going to sign my name on here. And that's one, and those are some things that you can do with a pencil in this case. With a pen is going to be different. What you want to do, what you want to remember is, with the pen, you're going to draw out a line. Let's start with a line. And as soon as I move the cursor or the mouse, you'll notice that there's a new line, or the line trace from the original line starts bending. So I'm going to go ahead and click that and click a random spot. I'm going to keep doing that until I do a certain shape. Now, if you're really good with Adobe Illustrator or Adobe InDesign, then you'll love this. So, and it's very similar. In fact, most if not all of Figma is similar to Adobe XD. So, if you have experience with that, more power to you. But you'll see kinda. Let me go ahead and select the screen and make it a little brighter. Oh yeah, something else I forgot to mention is you'll have layers here too. On the left hand side, there are different layers that you can work with. So if you want to work on a certain layer but can't access it via here, you can always just go back to this layer panel over here and make that a little darker, or you can click that and work easier with that. Similarly, if there's a certain thing, like I'm going to do the lines over here, these are called vectors, by the way, so just to keep that in mind for next time. Alright, if you want to work on a certain thing, you can either click on this or you can go to the layer panel over here. Anyway, let's go back to this. So I'm going to go ahead and select vector 5. I'm going to go back to the pen tool, or it should pop up here. Now you can bend it. I'll click it and it'll bend in a variety of directions that I see fit. Or you can also go to the paint bucket. Now paint bucket is going to have a certain number of things done with it. So if I hover over it with the paint bucket, what I can do is if I click this, it automatically fills. Now I can choose a different fill for that. So I'm going to do one of the ones that I've already done. Let's do this bright pink one, and it changes the fill of the paint bucket to a hot pink or a fuchsia, so to speak. So we're done with that. So when we feel like we're done, we're just going to click done. And then something else you can do, a couple of other things. Hand tool, literally all that does is if you have multiple screens, you can just drag back and forth between multiple screens and their connections or their things, just to see if everything matches up or if there's anything you need to work on. If you're going to share this, if you want to share it with someone, you can add comments, or if you're sharing it with me, you can say this is what this button does. So I'm going to click on this, and my name will pop up. I'm going to say clicking this takes you to screen 2. And then once I click post, that takes care of that. Now it's going to show up on the prototype, or it should show up on the prototype when we do that. So let's go ahead and go back to the design thing. There are a couple of other things that I want to do before I forget. Let's go ahead and do another screen. So we did iPhone 8 Plus. We're going to go ahead and do another iPhone 8 Plus screen, and we're not going to go ahead and do as much fancy stuff with this screen as we did over here, because what I'm going to show you is just kind of a basic thing of what you're going to do over here. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a star here. And for this one, what we're going to do is we're going to go to prototype. Now when we want to link screens from one area to another, we're going to always go to the prototype page, because that's where we're going to be introduced, and that's where we're going to really tackle wireframing. Wireframing is basically kind of like the map of like where functions on a app go, or what happens when you click on one button, what screen does that take you to, and what happens when you do that. So if I hover over certain options, you'll notice that there is a circle to the right hand corner of those objects on the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the object. Now the box is going to show up, but that circle is still there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click and hold on that circle, and I'm going to drag it to the screen that I want to drag it to. And once I drag it to that screen, you'll see that connection established. So once I let go, that connection is established. Likewise, you can do the same thing with the other side. and it'll take you to that screen. And this works for a number of reasons. So if I click play, it's going to take me to the screen that I initially left off on. By clicking on this, it takes me back to the home screen. And because I established certain objects as points where I would hit in order to go to another screen, it's going to take me to that area. You can do the same thing literally with other objects or things of your choice. But I'm going to go ahead and close this. And if you want to do transitions or whatnot, like animations, we can do a dissolve animation for both of these. You're going to want to, if you want to do certain animations for different functions, then you're going to have to do the animation for both of them. Because if we did let's do just one of these instant and one of these dissolve. So from here, if I click this, clicking this will give me a dissolve animation, but it's not going to apply to everything, because if I don't apply it to the star, for instance, it's just the instant animation. So dissolve instant. And again, that's going to give me the animations that I want. So you can have other animations too. So there's a number of things that you can do with that as well. One final thing that I want to share with you, and again, like we have design, we've covered prototypes, and we've covered that you can add your own code to this as well, and especially CSS. But one other thing that I want to cover, and which will be a requirement on your assignment, is you're going to need to add a plugin at some point. So with plugins, these are kind of like if you want to have like a sandwich menu on your thing, if you want to add buttons, or if you want to add like certain graphics. Now, and you're going to need at least one of these on your own app. So what you're going to do is you're going to manage plugins if you don't have any. And Figma.com has a number of ones that you can do. So I installed something called Better Font Picker. And what I'm gonna do here is I'm going to look for plugins. So I'm gonna go to the plugins panel down here on the left, and there's gonna be a number of featured plugins that you can use for your own thing. So you can have a number of things, but what you're gonna want to do is, if you don't see any that you like, you can search. You can browse all plugins, and you can search for certain plugins up here. Now, I don't know that this is going to work. Oh, here it is. Okay, but anyway, let's go ahead, and if you want a certain plugin, so let's say I want to have, lorem ipsum text or whatnot. Lorem ipsum text, by the way, is just basically filler text if this loads. So I'm going to go ahead and click install, and if I click install, it'll show that it's installed that. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to my profile. Let's go ahead and go back to drafts and go back to the one that we were doing. And if I go to plugins, it should show up over here. So lorem ipsum text. So what you would do basically with that plugin, for instance, is if you want to do like text, I'm going to do a text thing right here. Just some random stuff, and then I'm going to select lorem ipsum. and I'm going to generate some sentences. And so you'll see that there are 5 sentences generated with lorem ipsum, which they don't show here because the text box is so tiny, but that's going to be an example of what one plugin will do. So the assignment details are on tracks as far as like plugins are concerned, what you need to do, and connections between screens. Now, when you share this assignment, what you're going to do is you're going to click share. And what you're going to do is you can send it to, you can either send it to my email, or you can copy the link and you can paste it into the assignment submission box under tracks. So if I copy and paste this, give it just a second, guys. It'll take me to that area, and I can just play it, and I can just present or play it from that prototype. So you can copy the link and then paste that into box, or you can invite me to view this and then send the invite. I would recommend doing both. I can recommend doing both for the sake of this, but honestly, it's just easier to copy the link. So that's pretty much it. All the assignment details are on tracks, but I do know that you need 4 frames for your Proto.io assignment, and you need to show at least 1 connections between the screens. That could come in the form of buttons on screens or stuff like that. If you have any questions, I will be available during lab hours today, and I will be available via email. So until then, guys, stay safe, stay healthy, don't go out unless you have to, and good luck this coming week. All right, you guys have a wonderful day.